Welcome to Module 6. Upon completion of this module, the learner will be able to recognize the importance of supervision in the student's field practicum placement, differentiate between successful and unsuccessful supervision, identify social work topics to incorporate into supervision, and recognize various stages involved in the student's learning. By the time students are in their field practicum, they have had several academic courses where they have discussed the use of social work knowledge, skills, and values, but may not have had an opportunity to practice these attributes. Field practicum gives students this opportunity, and with the supervisor's assistance, the student will learn the finer points of social work practice in the community. To review, there are two types of supervision in field practicum. Educational supervision is a structured 1 hour per week session between the social work supervisor and the student. The primary focus of educational supervisory sessions is to discuss how academics and classroom instruction are translated into the real world of social work at the agency. The emphasis is on theory into practice. The educational supervisor must be a social worker and licensed if the student is in the MSW program. If the student is in the BSSW program, the educational supervisor can either be a MSW with 2 years of social work experience, post-MSW degree, or a licensed social worker. Task supervision may be structured or informal meetings with the student. This type of supervision focuses on the day-to-day tasks which must be completed in order to get the job done appropriately. Examples include shadowing the particulars of the position, understanding the computer system, and how to complete necessary paperwork. The task supervisor does not need to be a social worker and is encouraged to be in frequent communication with the educational supervisor to ensure the placement is going smoothly. Supervision is the most important aspect in a student's learning. With good supervision, direction, support, and encouragement, the field practicum experience may prove to be rewarding. There are some key components to good supervision which should take place within the first few weeks of the student's field practicum placement. Students should have a thorough orientation to the agency, including having access to policy and procedure manuals. They should also be introduced to coworkers and staff members. Depending on the size of the agency, students may visit other programs or departments to get a better understanding of the agency system. All agencies operate differently, and there are differences between nonprofit and for-profit agencies. Students may need help in identifying the differences and the reasoning behind policies and procedures or protocols. It is also helpful to explain agency partnerships with students, how they develop, why they are important, and how to maintain good community relations. Students should have their own personal work area. This workspace should include access to technology, which the student will need to perform tasks and duties listed on their learning contract. It is important to establish a particular supervision time, which is agreed upon, and set aside each week for the student's learning. Supervisors are encouraged to have the same set schedule each week for the student's supervisory session. Having supervision the same time each week enables the student to better prepare for supervision and establish a predictable schedule. Additionally, supervisors are encouraged to discuss with students their expectations for the student's time in their field practicum. Clarifying your role as a supervisor, your supervision style, the student's learning style, as well as the student's role within the agency is helpful in establishing expectations, policies, and procedures for all parties during the student's placement. Another key component of the student's orientation process to the agency is safety procedures. Students have access to a safety checklist in their planning packets prior to beginning their placement. This checklist should be reviewed and thoroughly discussed in the beginning of the student's time with the agency. Examples of items on the checklist include what to do in case of emergencies, procedures for dealing with irate clients, policies on discrimination or sexual harassment, as well as where to secure personal belongings. Students may be new to the social work field and new to your agency, whereas you as a supervisor may be seasoned in the field of social work and well-versed in the agency's policies. Some issues that come up for you may be naturally solved or addressed appropriately, but for a new social work student protocol will need to be spelled out. Taking the time to address issues on the safety checklist will hopefully offset any potential problems. One of the biggest tasks to be completed in the first 2 weeks of supervision is the development of the student's learning contract. Remember, it is the student's responsibility to write up the learning contract, but they will need your guidance in identifying tasks, activities, or projects that might be available to them at the agency. Students should discuss with you their interests and what they would like to accomplish, while you may share with the student the job description of the position. Students will write up the learning contract and review it with you before submitting to the field practicum office for approval. Finally, students may feel anxious or overwhelmed given the amount of information they are initially learning in their field practicum placement. Students often desire to digest and incorporate what they are learning as quickly as possible so as not to appear incompetent. Normalizing these emotions and helping the student process these feelings during the beginning stages of supervision can be helpful. Once the student has been oriented to the agency and coworkers and has developed the learning contract, they will begin to complete identified tasks. It is helpful to have periodic reviews of the student's learning contract during this time to track progress, discuss successes, and/or problems. This also helps you as a supervisor to stay updated on the student's performance of assignments in their field practicum. The School of Social Work encourages supervisors to discuss current or past courses the student has taken to help the student identify social work theories and concepts and how they relate to the agency setting. Encouraging students to explore alternative ways of thinking about social work practice or practice situations sparks critical reflection and is an excellent way to challenge the student's learning process. Sometimes clients or processes don't function the way students think they should, and it is helpful if the supervisor can guide the student in making sense of the real world, not operating how they had planned. Students may also bring in their course syllabi to assist in these discussions. Whenever a student is asked to read an article, chapter from a book, listen to podcasts, or attend training, it is important the supervisor review the information with the student so it becomes apparent that the student has a good understanding or grasp of the concepts and ideas presented. Doing this will give the student a solid base to proceed from when implementing those concepts or ideas into their placement. Social workers are faced with many unique issues such as boundaries, communication styles, burnout, and confidentiality. Discussing such issues or assigning readings will help the student navigate their way in the social work profession. We encourage students to utilize journaling of field practicum experiences as a way to process events and situations. Discussion of the student's journal entries, when appropriate, will assist the student to integrate social work concepts, theories, practice, and skills. Assigning journaling for student reflection is helpful. Please remember that you are there to guide and support the student in their learning opportunities, but not to treat. If it becomes apparent to you that the student may need some therapeutic help, please contact the field practicum office for how to proceed. We also encourage discussing and applying the NSW Code of Ethics to issues or dilemmas which may arise during the student's placement. Not all disciplines follow the same code of ethics, and students may need guidance if ethics or values clash. Finally, it is beneficial for students to receive periodic positive feedback, constructive criticism, and have clear expectations while in their placement. If you feel your student is not incorporating your feedback or direction, please contact the field practicum office. Throughout the student's time in field practicum, a variety of issues will surface, giving you prime teaching opportunities. Students may be working with clients or colleagues who are from a different culture than their own and may struggle to understand the cultural differences or how to use those differences in a therapeutic setting. Assigning readings or trainings on this topic will assist in discussions and facilitate the student's cultural competence. Students may also come to you with problems related to working with coworkers. These problems may be very similar to what any worker may experience on the job. In these cases, it is helpful for you to be a sounding board, allowing the student to problem solve and resolve any issues directly with coworkers. Depending on the situation, as a supervisor, you may point out the agency's policies and procedures or refer the student to the field practicum office when appropriate. In this manner, students may feel supported as they make the transition from student to professional social worker. Students gain great practice and are able to develop skills through role-playing scenarios and practical case examples. These techniques should be incorporated into supervision on a regular basis. For example, if a student is struggling with how to word interventions, role-playing client social worker dynamics is extremely helpful and may allow the student some insight as to how the client is feeling. Transference and countertransference issues may be complicated, but are necessary to address during the student's placement. Students are well read on the topic, but may not have had any real-life experience or may not even be able to identify when these issues are taking place. Supervisors are encouraged to support students in the identification of transference or countertransference issues so that the student may process through the situation. Boundaries in the field practicum setting is another important topic that should be incorporated into the student's supervision time. Students will need to learn appropriate boundaries, signs and symptoms of healthy versus unhealthy boundaries, as well as how to establish and enforce professional boundaries. When the student is nearing the end of their placement or in the last 2 to 4 weeks, it is a good idea to begin discussing the termination process with them. Depending on the student's involvement with coworkers and clients, ending their time at the agency may be a bittersweet experience. We encourage students to spend time discussing with their supervisors the best way to transition any existing clients to coworkers and how to effectively terminate with clients. It is also advised for students to say their goodbyes to coworkers where appropriate. It is important that you take time to review the student's learning contract to make sure all activities the student set out to accomplish were achieved. If a student did not complete an activity or assignment during their placement, please make note of this on their final grade evaluation form. When reviewing the learning contract with the student, we suggest you also discuss the student's significant learning experiences during their time at the agency. This will likely give you good feedback as to what went well for the student and what may need to be revamped before future students are accepted with your agency. During the final week of the student's placement, we advise the supervisor to complete the final grade evaluation form relating back to the learning contract and what was accomplished to give an accurate assessment and rating of the student's work. We also want to remind you to make comments regarding the student's progress after each goal on the grade evaluation form. This enables the field practicum office to have a better understanding of your perceptions of the student's progress. Reviewing the final grade with the student is necessary and good information for them to have prior to being employed as a professional social worker. It is the student's responsibility to ensure the final grade evaluation is submitted to the field practicum office. As an added resource for field practicum supervisors, we have short training videos accessible through our website on a variety of topics, such as the basics of supervision, managing various skill levels, having hard conversations and giving feedback to supervisees, and group supervision dynamics. Additionally, the UNO Grace Abbott School of Social Work Training and Supervision Academy routinely offers trainings and workshops to our community.